They say the wilderness teaches you two things: how to survive and how to die clean. I learned the first, thought I would never need the second. Then I found the camp at Whispering Creek, and I learned there are worse things than dying, like living after you have seen what men do when they forget they are human. My name is Caleb Morgan. I am a mountain man. Was a scout for the United States Cavalry back when I still believed in causes bigger than staying alive. That was before Fort Apache, before Sarah, before I learned that some promises can only be kept in darkness where no one can see you break. This is not my story. Not really. It belongs to a woman named Keona Chen, to a sergeant named Elijah Crane, to his grandson Thomas, and to 13 children who refused to stay victims. I was just the man who found them, the man who decided for once in 5 years not to walk away. But I am getting ahead of myself. Stories do not start at the end. They start in blood and snow, and the kind of silence that makes you wish for wolves. February 18th, 1878. 3 days before I found her, I was hunting elk in the high country north of Cades Cove, working a ridge line where the big males like to shelter from wind. My pack horse carried a decent buck I had taken the day before, and I was thinking about heading back to my cabin, maybe staying in for a week reading the one book I owned until spring made the world green again. I had been alone for 5 years, 2 months, and 14 days. I counted every single one. The ridge gave me a view down into Whispering Creek Valley, where the Apache and Cherokee had built their camp 7 years back. I traded with them sometimes, brought pelts, took cornmeal, and dried venison in return. They never asked about my past. I never asked about theirs. That was the arrangement. That was survival. Smoke rose from the valley. Normal. Breakfast fires, I figured. But then I noticed the ravens, too many of them, circling, waiting, and the silence. No children playing, no women singing, no men calling to each other as they worked. Just wind through bare trees and the slow circle of black wings against gray sky. Something in my gut twisted. The same instinct that had kept me alive through 6 years of scouting hostile territory. The one that said, wrong, something is wrong. I should have turned around, should have taken my deer and my horse and my carefully maintained solitude back to the cabin, stoked the fire, and pretended I had not seen anything. That had been my way for 5 years. Do not get involved. Do not care. Caring gets people killed. But Nishoba lived down there. Nishoba, who had once sat with me for 3 hours without speaking, just watching the sun set, understanding that sometimes a man needs company without conversation. Who had taught me how to read animal tracks in snow, how to find water in drought, how to survive winter when you have nothing but will. I owed him more than pelts and cornmeal. I owed him the kind of debt you cannot repay with things. So I went down. The descent took 20 minutes, long enough for the knot in my stomach to become a fist, long enough for me to check my rifle twice, make sure the powder was dry, the shot was loaded, the barrel was clean. The camp appeared through the trees like something out of a fever dream. 30 bodies, maybe more. I stopped counting after the first dozen because numbers stopped meaning anything. Men, women, elders, shot execution style, not combat wounds, clean holes in the back of the head, in the chest, in the throat. The kind of killing that requires someone to stand close, to look at a face, to pull a trigger while watching a person realize they are about to die. The lodges were burned, not completely but enough. Supply caches ransacked, food scattered, tools broken. Everything that could not be stolen was destroyed. And the arrangement. That was what made my blood go cold. The bodies were not where they fell. Someone had moved them, arranged them in a circle around the dead fire pit, facing inward like they were having a meeting, like someone wanted to send a message. I have been in war. I have seen massacre. But this was different. This was theater. This was cruelty as art. I dismounted, tied my horse to a tree far enough away that she would not smell the death, and walked into the camp on foot. My boots made no sound. Old habit from scouting. You learn to move like smoke when your life depends on silence. I found Neshoba near the edge of the camp between two lodges. He had been running toward the woods when they shot him in the back. His face was turned toward the trees, mouth open, like he was trying to call out. Warning someone, trying to save someone. I knelt beside him. His hand was cold but not frozen. Maybe 8 hours dead, maybe 10. The blood in the snow had not iced over yet, which meant the killing happened during the night. I closed his eyes. It was the least I could do, the only thing I could do. Then I started reading the scene like a scout reads terrain. 12 attackers, maybe 14, heavy boots, military issue, 4 wagons judging by the tracks heading east, horses at least 20 of them. They came in fast, hit hard, and left organized. Not a raid, not revenge. This was an operation. But some things did not fit. The bodies showed no defensive wounds, no spent shells from return fire. These people were not armed when they died. They were surprised, which meant someone had known they would not be ready. And then I found the other tracks, small feet, bare in places, running prints heading toward the creek, one person moving fast, panicked, a survivor. The root cellar was hidden under brush and deadfall near the creek bed, the kind of shelter you build for storing winter vegetables and hiding from storms. Or from men with guns. I almost missed it. Would have if not for the broken branch that looked too fresh, too deliberate. Someone had pulled it aside recently, then tried to cover their tracks. I approached slowly. Could be a trap. Could be someone desperate enough to shoot first and ask questions. Never. I knelt by the entrance, spoke quiet. I am not here to hurt you. My name is Caleb Morgan. I am a friend of Neshoba. No response. If you are hiding, you can stay hidden. But if you are hurt, I can help. Your choice. Silence. Then so faint I almost missed it a breath. A gasp. I moved the brush aside. The cellar was dark, barely big enough for one person to crouch inside. And there, pressed against the back wall, was a woman. She was unconscious. Head wound bullet graze across her temple. Blood matted in her black hair. Defensive wounds on her arms. She had fought, she had lost. But she had survived. I checked for other injuries. Bruised ribs. Cuts on her hands from the root cellar's rough walls. But nothing life-threatening. The head wound looked worse than it was. Scalp wounds bleed heavy, scare easy, but often heal clean. She was small. Maybe 25 years old. Mixed heritage, I guessed. Apache features, but something else too. Chinese, maybe. Her clothing was practical. Men's boots under a torn skirt. Pants beneath that. Someone who dressed for function, not appearance. Someone who had been ready to run. In her hand, clutched tight even in unconsciousness, was a leather-bound journal. I tried to take it, see what was inside. Her fingers tightened. Even senseless, she was holding on. I made a decision, the kind that changes everything. I wrapped her in my buffalo coat, lifted her. She weighed maybe 110 pounds light as a deer carcass. I carried her to my horse, secured her across the saddle, and started the 8-mile ride back to my cabin. Behind me, 30 bodies grew cold in the snow. Ravens settled on the lodges. Wind erased my tracks. And somewhere to the east, 4 wagons carried away children who did not know if rescue was coming. My cabin sat in a fold of the mountain built against a rock face, so one wall was solid stone. I had chosen the location for defense and solitude. One door, one window, sight lines in all directions. A man could live here forever and never see another soul. I had tried. For 5 years I had tried. I carried the woman inside, laid her on my bed, the only bed. Wool blankets that had seen better days but still held warmth. I stoked the fire, built it up until the cabin filled with heat. Then I tended her wounds. I had done this before. In the cavalry, you learn field medicine, or you watch men die from injuries a doctor could fix in 10 minutes. I cleaned the head wound with whiskey. She did not flinch. Still out. I wrapped it in clean cloth torn from an old shirt. The cuts on her hands got the same treatment. The bruised ribs I could do nothing about except let time heal them. While I worked, I studied her face. Strong features, a scar on her chin, old and faded, calloused hands, the kind you get from work, from survival, from life that does not forgive softness. This was not a woman who had been protected. This was a woman who had protected herself. On the table beside the bed, I set the journal she had been holding. Leather cover worn smooth from handling. No name on the outside, just symbols carved into the leather. Apache symbols, I thought, but I could not read them. I wanted to open it. Wanted to know what was inside, what was worth holding on to, even in unconsciousness. But that felt like a violation. She would wake, she would tell me, or she would not. Either way, it was her choice. I made coffee, strong and black. The smell filled the cabin, familiar and grounding. I sat at my table, rifle across my lap, and waited. She woke at dusk. I knew because her breathing changed. Faster, shallower, the shift from sleep to alertness, from vulnerability to readiness. I did not move, did not speak. Let her assess the situation on her own time. 30 seconds passed, a minute. I heard the bed creak as she sat up, heard her test her limbs, checking for pain, for restraints, for threats. When she spoke, her voice was rough but steady. "Where am I?" "My cabin, 8 miles north of Whispering Creek." Silence. Processing. "Who are you?" "Caleb Morgan. I found you in the root cellar. Brought you here." More silence. I kept my back to her, giving her space, giving her control. "Why, good question." I asked myself the same thing during the ride back. "Because leaving you there felt wrong." I heard her stand, heard her move to the window, checking exits, checking threats. Smart. I would have done the same. "The camp," she said. Not a question. A statement that needed no answer. "Everyone is dead," I said, because there was no kind way to say it. "Except you." She did not cry, did not gasp. Just stood at the window looking out at mountains she could not see in the darkness. "The children," she said. "Wagon tracks heading east. 12, maybe 14 kids. They were taken alive." Now she turned. I could feel her eyes on my back. "How do you know?" "I was a scout. I read tracks." "Were 5 years ago, not anymore." She crossed to the table, picked up her journal, checked it for damage. Satisfied, she tucked it against her chest. "Thank you," she said, "for not reading it. Not my business. And for the bandages, and the shelter." I turned to face her then. In the firelight, I could see her more clearly. Dark eyes that missed nothing. A face that had seen too much and forgotten none of it. Young and years old in everything else. "Water is on the table," I said. "Food if you want it. You have been unconscious for 6 hours." She drank, slow and careful, not desperate, controlled. Then she sat in the chair across from me, journal still held tight. "My name is Keona Chen." "Pleased to meet you, Miss Chen." "Just Keona." I nodded. She looked at the rifle across my lap, at the cabin's single door, at the boarded window. Taking measure. "You live alone," she said. "Yes." "By choice or necessity?" "Both." She almost smiled at that. Almost. "The men who did this," she said, "they will come looking for me." I figured. "You should let me leave before they find me here. You can barely stand. I can walk. 40 miles through snow with a head wound and no supplies. You would die before sunrise." She held my gaze. "Then I die free instead of caught. Better odds." I respected that. Respected the math of survival, the cold calculation that sometimes death is the better option. "What did your father hide?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. Surprise. "How do you know Neshoba was my father? You were hiding in a root cellar at his camp. You are holding his journal like it is the last piece of him, and you have the same stubborn look in your eyes that he got when arguing about the best way to smoke venison." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened the journal. "My father was a witness," she said, "to something that powerful men want forgotten." "What kind of something?" She turned the journal toward me. "Read it. Then decide if you want me gone by morning." The journal was a record of atrocity. Neshoba had been at Fort Apache in June of 1873, making horseshoes for the cavalry. He had seen the massacre, seen Colonel Nathan Haynes order the execution of 40 Apache women and children to cover up the theft of Army rifles. Rifles Haynes had sold to Mexican rebels for profit. Captain Morrison had tried to stop it. Haynes shot him in the back, claimed it was combat casualty, called Morrison a hero. No one questioned it, except the witnesses, 12 of them, people who had seen, people who knew. Neshoba was one. He ran, too afraid to speak, too guilty to forget. So he wrote it down. Collected evidence, receipts, contracts, letters, everything he could find that proved Haynes was a war profiteer, a murderer, a man who had built a fortune on blood. But the entry that made my hands shake was dated July 18, 1873. It mentioned a white woman, a doctor, civilian volunteer. She had tried to save the children, tried to shield them with her own body. A soldier shot her. Accident, they said. Friendly fire. Tragedy of war. Her name was Sarah Morgan. I set the journal down slowly, carefully, like it was made of glass and grief. "Did you know her?" Keona asked, watching my face. "She was my wife." The words felt strange in my mouth. I had not said them aloud in 5 years. Had not let myself think of Sarah as anything but a ghost, a memory, a wound that would not close. Keona's expression softened, not pity, understanding. "Then you have as much reason to want Haynes dead as I do," she said. I looked at the carved blue jay on my mantel, the only thing I had kept from our life together. Sarah had loved blue jays, said they were brave and loud and refused to be ignored. "I do not want him dead," I said. "I want him to have never existed. There is a difference." "Will you help me?" Simple question. Enormous weight. I thought about the 30 bodies at Whispering Creek, about 13 children in wagons heading toward lives of slavery or worse, about Neshoba, who had befriended me when I was a stranger, who had given me silence when I needed it, and wisdom when I could bear it, about Sarah, who had died trying to save children she did not know. "Help you do what?" I asked. "You're one woman with a head wound, and 30 dead behind you. Haynes has money men and the law on his side." "I have evidence," she said, tapping the journal, "and I have you. You do not have me. Your wife gave my father a list of witnesses. You were on it." She reached into the journal, pulled out a folded paper, aged and blood-stained, unfolded it carefully. Witness names in Sarah's handwriting, 12 of them. Number 2 was mine, Caleb Morgan, scout. Fled before testimony. I stared at my name like it belonged to someone else, someone braver, someone better. "You ran?" Keona said, not accusing. Stating fact. My father ran. Everyone ran. Now 30 more are dead and children are being sold. How many times will we run before we stop? I had no answer for that, had not had an answer for 5 years. We sat in silence as the fire burned low and the night pressed close around the cabin. Outside wind moved through the pines carrying the promise of more snow, more cold, more reasons to stay hidden and safe. Finally I stood, walked to the mantel, picked up the carved blue jay. "I will think about it," I said. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow we decide what comes next." Keona nodded. "Thank you, Caleb. Do not thank me yet. I have not agreed to anything except shelter." But we both knew that was a lie. I had agreed the moment I carried her out of that cellar, the moment I chose involvement over isolation. Some choices you cannot take back. You can only live with them. I woke to the sound of a horse. Midnight, maybe later. I was on the floor by the fire rifle, in arm's reach, old habits from the war, keeping me ready even in sleep. Keona was already awake, I could tell. Her breathing had changed. "Someone is coming," she whispered. "I hear it." I moved to the window, peered through a crack in the boards. One rider, alone, moving slow and careful, like he knew he was entering a dangerous place. "Friend or enemy?" Keona asked, knife in her hand. Where she got the knife I did not know. But I was not surprised. Do not know yet. Stay quiet. The rider stopped 50 yards out, dismounted, raised his hands. Caleb Morgan, a voice called. Deep, familiar. It is Elijah Crane. I am unarmed. Need to talk. I had not heard that voice in 5 years. Sergeant Elijah Crane, 62 years old, retired from the Army, living quiet in the valley below. Last I heard, he had a grandson he was raising. Stayed out of trouble. Kept his head down. Come forward slow, I called back. Hands where I can see them. He walked into the firelight that spilled from my window. Gray hair, weathered face, hands, raised palms open. No weapons visible. I opened the door, rifle aimed at his chest. Sergeant? Scout, he replied. Old greeting, old acknowledgement. What are you doing here? Came to warn you. Haynes knows you are involved. I am not involved. You found the girl. That makes you involved. Kiona stepped into view. Elijah saw her, and his face went pale. Lord have mercy, he whispered. You are Neshoba's daughter. You knew my father. Knew him. Testified against Morrison with him after Fort Apache. Then Haynes threatened my family. I recanted, said I remembered wrong. Morrison's name was cleared posthumously. Haynes walked free. He looked at me. And you ran before they could call you. We are quite the collection of cowards. Why are you here, Elijah? I asked. He pulled a telegram from his coat, handed it to me, from Colonel Nathan Haynes, to Elijah Crane, dated that morning. The message was simple, clear, threatening. Heard you have been talking. Recommend you stop. Would hate for grandson Thomas to have an accident. Your friend Caleb, too. Accidents happen to mountain men all the time. He knows everything, Elijah said. Where I live, where you live, where my grandson goes to school. What does he want? Kiona asked. Same thing he has always wanted, silence. But now he is running out of witnesses. Elijah handed me a newspaper 3 days old. Headline: Army announces investigation into alleged arms trafficking. Colonel Haynes to testify. War Department opened an investigation, Elijah explained. Someone higher up wants Haynes gone. They gave him 30 days to prepare testimony. He is using that time to eliminate anyone who can contradict his story. The massacre, Kiona said, was not random. Your father's camp had 3 other Fort Apache witnesses living there. Haynes killed them all, made it look like a renegade attack. And the children? I asked. Leverage. If Kiona has evidence, he needs her to trade. Kids for documents. I looked at the telegram again, at my name. At the threat so casual it might as well have been a weather report. What do you want from us? I asked Elijah. I came to tell you to run, take my wagon, head west, disappear. And the children? Kiona asked. I will get them, somehow. You are one old man. He has an army. Elijah had no answer to that. I looked at Kiona, at the journal on the table, at the blue jay on the mantel. What if we do not run? I asked. Both of them looked at me. What if we get the evidence, get the kids, and bring Haynes down before his testimony? Elijah stared. You are talking about war. I am talking about 3 people doing the right thing for once. 4, a small voice said. We all turned. In the doorway stood a boy, 9 years old, dark skin, bright eyes, scared but trying to hide it. Thomas, Elijah said, I told you to wait by the horse. I heard you talking about fighting bad men, Thomas said. I want to help. Son, this is not for children. Those kids in the wagons are children. I am a child. If they need saving, I should help. The logic was unassailable. Elijah looked at me helpless. I knelt to Thomas's level. You understand what you are saying. This will be dangerous. People might die. Grandpa says running from what is right just makes you run faster next time. I am tired of running. Out of the mouths of children. Truth with no decoration. All right, I said. 4 of us. Elijah looked like he wanted to argue. Then he sighed. If we do this, we do it smart. We get to Bear's Maw, get the evidence, find where he is holding the kids, and He stopped, tilted his head, listening. I heard it too. Horses, multiple horses, coming fast. Kiona moved to the window. 8 riders, torches, surrounding the cabin. I grabbed my rifle, checked the load. Elijah did the same with a pistol I had not seen him carrying. A voice called from outside, cultured, calm, terrifying in its reasonableness. "Mr. Morgan, Miss Chen, I believe you have something that belongs to me." Colonel Nathan Haynes had come himself. "I am a reasonable man," Haynes continued. "Let us negotiate. I will trade. 13 children for 1 journal. Even exchange." I looked at Kiona. She shook her head. "Do not answer him," I whispered. "I know you are listening," Haynes said. "Here is my offer. Bring me the journal and any other copies. In return, I will release the children unharmed in 48 hours. You have my word as an officer and gentleman." Thomas looked at his grandfather. "Can we trust him?" Elijah's face was grim. "Not for a second." "Refuse," Haynes called, "and I burn this cabin with you inside. Then I will find the evidence myself, and those children will be sold to work camps in Mexico. Your choice. You have 5 minutes." Riders formed a perimeter, torches ready. They were serious. Kiona looked at me. "What do we do?" I thought of Sarah, of her last words in my memory spoken 5 years ago as she died in my arms. "Live. Promise me you will live." I had not been living. I had been hiding. There is a difference. "We give him exactly what he deserves," I said. I moved to the back wall, pushed aside a shelf. Behind it was a narrow opening in the rock face, barely visible unless you knew to look. "What is that?" Kiona asked. "Old Cherokee Escape Tunnel. Leads half a mile north to the creek bed. Single file, pitch black, tight squeeze. And we leave him the cabin. We leave him an empty box." Outside, Haynes was counting down. 4 minutes, Mr. Morgan." I looked at each of them, Kiona, Elijah, Thomas. "This is the moment," I said. "We run. Now we keep running forever. We stay, we die. But if we use this tunnel, we fight. We finish this, all of us, together." Kiona did not hesitate. "I am done running." Elijah nodded. "As am I." Thomas looked up at his grandfather. "Together, together." 3 minutes. Kiona went first into the tunnel. Thomas second. Elijah third. I grabbed the Blue Jay from the mantel, tucked it in my coat, and followed. Behind me, the cabin door splintered. Haynes's men poured in shouting, searching, finding nothing. I reached up, pulled a support beam. The tunnel entrance collapsed behind us, sealing us in darkness. Above, muffled by rock and earth, I heard Haynes scream in rage. "Find them! Search everywhere! They cannot have gone far." But we were already gone, crawling through absolute blackness, cold stone scraping skin, breathing dust and old air, moving toward an uncertain future, but away from certain death. 20 minutes later, we emerged in a creek bed a mile from the cabin, turned back to see orange glow over the trees. My cabin burning. Everything I owned reduced to ash and memory. "I am sorry," Kiona said, seeing my face. "Do not be. It was just wood and metal." "What now?" Thomas asked. I looked at the 3 of them. A woman who had lost her family, a man seeking redemption, a boy trying to be brave. And I realized something. I was not alone anymore. For the first time in 5 years, I had people who needed me, people I needed. "Now," I said, "we go to Maryville, get supplies, plan our next move." "Haynes will be hunting us," Elijah said. "Let him hunt. We are done being prey." Kiona smiled, small, fierce. "You said you had not agreed to help me." I lied. We started walking, 4 figures in the snow heading toward a fight we could not win but could not avoid. Behind us, my cabin collapsed into embers. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness, a war criminal waited with an army and a ticking clock. But we were not running anymore. We were moving forward, toward danger, toward justice, toward whatever end awaited us. And that made all the difference. Dawn came cold and gray over the mountains. We had walked through the night, 4 fugitives, moving through snow that erased our tracks as fast as we made them. Thomas rode on his grandfather's back for the last 2 miles exhausted but uncomplaining. The boy had grit, more than most men I had known. By first light we reached the outskirts of Maryville, a town of maybe 300 souls built around a crossroads where farmers brought tobacco and traders brought news from the wider world. I had not been here in 3 years, had not wanted the looks, the questions, the reminder that civilization existed beyond my mountain. But Thomas needed supplies, clothes that fit, food that was not jerky and snowmelt, and we needed information. Elijah knew a woman who ran a boarding house on the edge of town. Widow McCrae, he called her. Kept to herself, asked no questions, remembered favors. We slipped in through the back door just as the sun broke over the eastern ridge. She took one look at us and knew we were running, knew we were desperate, knew that helping us might cost her everything. "Upstairs," she said. "Third room on the left. There is a stove, blankets, and a lock on the door. I will bring food in an hour. Do not show your faces at the windows." "Thank you," Elijah said. "Thank me by surviving. I have buried enough good people." We climbed narrow stairs to a small room that smelled of lavender and old wood. Kiona collapsed on the bed, immediately asleep before her head touched the pillow. The head wound and the night's march had taken everything she had. Thomas curled up beside her without being told, his small body seeking warmth and safety. Within seconds, he was breathing deep and even. That left Elijah and me. We stood by the window, not looking out, just standing. 2 men who had run from the same sin, carrying the same weight. "You did not have to come back," I said quietly. "You could have taken Thomas and disappeared." "Could have. Did not. Why?" He was quiet for a long time. Outside, the town was waking. Shopkeepers opening doors, farmers driving wagons toward market, normal people doing normal things, unaware that 50 yards away, 4 people were planning something that would likely get them killed. "Neshoba came to see me 2 weeks before he died," Elijah said finally. "Brought me a letter. Made me promise to deliver it if something happened to him. To Kiona. No. To you." He reached into his coat, pulled out an envelope, sealed with wax. My name written on the front in careful script. I stared at it like it was a snake. "He knew," I asked, "that I was on the mountain. He knew. Said you were the only man he had ever met who understood that some silences are louder than words. Said if his daughter survived and needed help, you were the one who would give it. Not because you wanted to, because you could not live with yourself if you did not." He gave me too much credit. "Did he?" I took the letter. Did not open it, not yet. "We should rest," I said. 2 hours, then we move. "Where?" "Thomas's school. We get him someplace safe, then we go north to Bear's Maw." Elijah nodded, started to turn away, then stopped. "Caleb, when this is over, if we survive, will you teach Thomas what you know, the mountain, the survival, the way to live without needing anyone? Why? Because I am 62 years old, and I will not live forever. And that boy needs someone who can show him how to be strong without being hard, how to be alone without being lonely. I think you know that balance better than most." I looked at Thomas, small and brave and sleeping like the child he was. "If we survive," I said. "Yes?" Elijah smiled, closed his eyes, was asleep within minutes, the soldier's gift of rest whenever opportunity allowed. I sat by the window letter in hand and finally broke the seal. Neshoba's handwriting was neat and precise, the letters of a man who had learned English late but mastered it completely. "Caleb Morgan, mountain man, scout, survivor. If you are reading this, my daughter lives and I am dead. Good. That means she found you. That means the mountain gave her what I could not. Safety. You and I, we are the same. We ran from Fort Apache, ran from truth, ran from the moment when we could have been brave but chose survival instead. I do not judge you for this. I did the same. But running ends, my friend. Eventually the thing you run from catches you, or you turn and face it. There is no third option. I have spent 10 years collecting evidence against Nathan Haynes. contracts, letters, witness statements, all hidden at Bear's Maw Cave marked with symbols only Keona can read. But there is one piece of evidence he does not know exists. The most important piece. My rifle. The one I carried as a warrior before I chose peace. I have carved every crime, every witness name, every date into the wooden stock, coded in Apache symbols. The rifle is a map, a confession, a testament. Haynes took it from my body. He has it now. But he does not know what it is. To him, it is just a gun. Get that rifle, Caleb. Decode the symbols. The evidence at Bear's Maw is important, but the rifle is everything. With it, Haynes cannot hide, cannot lie, cannot win. I ask you this not as payment for friendship. I ask because you are a man who knows what it means to lose someone you love to evil that walks free. You're Sarah, my wife. The 40 innocents at Fort Apache. They deserve justice. But more than that, Keona deserves a future. Those 13 children deserve to go home. And you, my friend, deserve to stop running. Be brave this time, both of us. Your friend in silence and in truth, Nishoba. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in my coat pocket next to the carved blue jay. 2 dead people telling me to be better than I was, asking me to stand when standing would probably get me killed. I looked at Keona asleep and wounded and trusting me with her life. All right, I thought. All right, I will try. We left at mid-morning. Widow McCrae gave us bread, cheese, and a warning. Haynes's men had been through town at dawn asking questions, showing drawings. Rough sketches of me, Keona, Elijah. They were hunting hard. How much time do we have? I asked. Hours? Maybe less. They are working a grid pattern north to south. They will be back. Then we move fast. Thomas's school sat on the north edge of town, a small building that served 20 children from the surrounding farms. We approached from the tree line, staying out of sight, watching for threats. Classes had just let out. Children poured from the door like water from a broken dam, laughing and shouting and alive, in the way only children can be. Thomas spotted a boy his age, started to wave, then caught himself. Elijah's hand on his shoulder, gentle reminder. We are hiding now. No friends. No normal. That is Matthew Cole, Thomas whispered. He shares his lunch with me sometimes. You will see him again, Keona said, when this is over. Promise? She did not answer. Could not promise what she did not know. We waited until the children dispersed. Then Elijah walked out alone, casual, just a grandfather picking up his grandson early. Nothing suspicious, nothing worth noticing. But I noticed the 2 riders at the far end of the street, noticed the way they sat their horses alert and watchful, noticed the rifles across their saddles. Haynes's men. We have company, I said quietly to Keona. She saw them too. Can we get Thomas out before they see? Maybe. If Elijah moves fast, but children do not move fast when they are saying goodbye to friends. Thomas hugged Matthew Cole, waved to his teacher, took his time like he had all day, and the riders noticed, started moving toward the school, not running, just closing distance, interested. Damn, I breathed. Elijah saw them too, picked up Thomas, no explanation, just sudden movement, started walking fast toward the trees where we waited. The riders spurred their horses, crossing the distance faster now. Elijah, one of them called. Hold up, we could not wait. I stepped out of the tree's rifle, visible but not aimed, making myself a target, drawing their attention. You looking for someone? I called. Both riders stopped, turned, saw me. Recognition flashed across their faces, the drawings they had been shown. The mountain man, the fugitive. That is Caleb Morgan, one shouted. They drew their rifles. I dropped behind a tree as the first shot cracked past my head. Keona fired from the tree line, her pistol barking twice. One rider fell. The other wheeled his horse, retreating, shouting for help. Go, I yelled to Elijah. Get Thomas to the horses. We had left 4 horses tied in a hollow quarter-mile north. Widow McCrae's parting gift, no questions asked, no payment accepted. Elijah ran. Thomas bounced on his back, silent and scared, and holding on. Kiona and I covered their retreat, firing not to kill, but to suppress, to buy seconds we did not have. More riders appeared. 4, 6, 8, pouring out of side streets like hornets from a kicked nest. "Time to run," Kiona said. We ran. The chase through Maryville lasted 10 minutes, the longest 10 minutes of my life. We split up. Basic tactics. Harder to track 2 targets than 4. Elijah and Thomas went north. Kiona and I went east, then doubled back west, using alleys and buildings and every trick I had learned in 6 years of scouting hostile territory. Bullets punched through wooden walls, shattered windows, sent civilians screaming for cover. I hated that. Hated bringing war into a peaceful town. But Haynes had left us no choice. This was his doing, his men, his evil spilling over onto innocent people. We reached the horses. Elijah and Thomas were already mounted. I threw Kiona onto a horse, climbed onto my own, and we rode. North into the mountains, into country I knew better than any map. Into terrain where horses mattered less than knowledge, where numbers meant nothing against experience. The pursuers followed. Of course they did. 8 men on good horses, armed and angry and motivated by fear of Haynes more than by any real desire to catch us. But I was not running blind. I was leading them into narrow passages where they had to ride single file, across streams where tracks disappeared, through deadfall where horses stumbled and men cursed. After 2 hours we lost them, simply rode into a canyon, dismounted, led the horses up a hidden trail too steep for mounted pursuit, and watched from above as 8 frustrated riders searched below, found nothing, and eventually turned back. Thomas had not made a sound the entire chase. When we finally stopped, hands shaking from adrenaline and fear, he looked up at me with eyes too old for 9 years. "Are they gone?" he asked. "For now. Will they come back?" "Yes." He nodded, accepting it, understanding that this was his life now, running, hiding, fighting. "I am sorry," Elijah said to him. "You should be in school, not fleeing gunmen." "The other kids in those wagons should be in school too," Thomas replied. "At least I have you. They have no one." Out of the mouths of children, truth that cut like a blade. Kiona dismounted, checked her pistol, reloaded with practiced efficiency. "How far to Bear's Maw?" 40 miles through mountains. "We push hard, we can make it by tomorrow night. And if Haynes gets there first, then we improvise." She smiled at that, small and fierce and beautiful, in a way that had nothing to do with appearance and everything to do with spirit. "You are good at improvising," she said. "I have had practice." We rode through the afternoon and into evening, maintaining a pace that 8 miles, but did not kill the horses. Thomas rode with Elijah, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just watching the world pass, with the quiet attention of a child who knows his life has changed forever. As dusk fell, we made camp in a hollow sheltered by 3 sides of rock. No fire. Too risky. We ate cold bread and cheese, drank from a creek that tasted of snowmelt and stone. The temperature dropped fast. February in the mountains does not forgive. We huddled together under blankets, sharing warmth, 4 bodies pressed close in the darkness. Thomas fell asleep first, exhausted. Then Elijah, the old soldier's ability to rest anywhere, still sharp despite his years. That left Kiona and me, awake, alert, listening to the mountain's night sounds and the steady breathing of our companions. "Tell me about her," Kiona said quietly. "Sarah." I did not want to, had not spoken her name aloud, except in my head for 5 years. But something about the darkness, about the proximity of death, about Kiona's genuine interest, made the words come. She was a doctor, trained in Philadelphia, could have married rich, lived easy, had everything a woman could want. Instead, she came west to help people who could not pay her in anything but gratitude. Why? She said suffering was suffering no matter what color the skin, said she had been given skills, and it would be a sin not to use them where they were needed most. I could see her in my mind, dark hair always escaping its pins, hands that were gentle but strong, eyes that saw through pretense to the truth beneath. She used to sing, I said, off-key, terribly. I would tease her about it, and she would sing louder just to annoy me. I would give anything to hear that off-key singing one more time. Kiona was quiet for a moment. Then my father used to burn breakfast every Sunday, on purpose, said it made the coffee taste better by comparison. I smiled in the darkness. Nishoba always did have strange logic. He was not my father. The words hung there, quiet, heavy. The letter in the journal, she continued. The one you read when you thought I was sleeping. He told me the truth. That he found me as a child after a raid. That my real father was a man he had killed in battle. That he raised me to atone for that sin. Does it matter? I asked. Blood versus choice. It did, for about an hour after I read it. Then I realized he loved me, not because he had to, because he chose to, and that is a stronger thing. Yes, I said, it is. Our hands were close on the blanket between us, not touching, but close. Caleb, she said. Yes. Thank you for not leaving me in the dark. Thank you for pulling me out of mine. Her hand moved, covered mine, just for a moment, warmth in the cold, connection in the isolation. Then she withdrew, settled into sleep, left me alone with the stars and the weight of promises I was not sure I could keep. The next day brought us into the high country, terrain so rugged that the horses struggled, breath steaming in air so thin it burned our lungs. We were above the tree line now in a world of rock and ice and sky that went on forever. Thomas rode quietly, watching everything, learning without being taught. I saw him notice which stones were stable, which snow was safe to cross. Saw him mark the position of the sun, the direction of the wind. The boy had the instincts. Around midday we stopped to rest the horses and ourselves. Kiona taught Thomas about plants that grew even in winter, showed him how to find water under ice, how to read animal tracks, how to survive when survival seemed impossible. Why do you know all this? Thomas asked her. Because my father believed knowledge is the one thing no one can take from you. You can lose your home, your family, your possessions, but what you know, what you have learned, that is yours forever. Will you teach me more? If we survive this, I will teach you everything I know. Promise, promise. Elijah watched them with something like peace on his face. Seeing his grandson find teachers, find purpose, find reasons to be brave. We reached the foothills of Gregory Bald by late afternoon. Bear's Maw Cave was still 5 miles ahead, hidden in a fold of the mountain where 3 ridges met, and that was where we saw the smoke. Not much, just a thin line against the gray sky, but enough. Someone is there, I said. Haynes, Kiona asked, or his men, or someone else. No way to know without getting closer. We approached carefully. I went first on foot, leaving the others with the horses. Scout training taking over. Move like smoke. See without being seen. Learn before acting. The cave entrance was massive. 40 feet tall, shaped like a gaping mouth full of stone teeth, and in front of it, working with tools and sweat and determination, were 10 men. They were trying to break through a wall of boulders that had been placed across the entrance. Recent work, deliberate. Someone had sealed the cave. But who I watched for 20 minutes, learned the pattern. 2 guards on watch, 8 workers rotating in shifts. No sign of Haynes himself. These were hired men following orders, not particularly invested in the work. I crept back to the others, reported what I had seen. Someone blocked the entrance, I said. Recently, deliberately. Why? Elijah asked. Kiona pulled out her father's journal, flipped to a page with a sketch. A map of the cave showing the main entrance and something else. A smaller passage on the western face. My father showed me a secret way in, she said. Years ago, he said if the main entrance was ever compromised, there was always another path. Can you find it? I think so. We circled wide, staying out of sight, until we reached the western face of the mountain. There, hidden behind a curtain of ice and stone, was a crack barely 3 feet wide. Kiona studied it, touched the rock-traced symbols that had been carved into the stone. Bear, moon, water. "This is it, Joe," she said, "but it will be tight. We go single file, and there is no guarantee it leads where we need to go." "Only one way to find out," I said. We tied the horses in a sheltered spot well hidden. If we did not come back, the animals could break free and survive. Then we entered the mountain. The passage was worse than tight. It was suffocating. A tunnel barely wide enough for a man's shoulders, carved through solid rock by water and time and forces I did not understand. I went first, then Kiona, then Thomas. Elijah brought up the rear, his bulk making the squeeze even harder. We had one candle. Its light pushed back maybe 3 feet of darkness. Beyond that, nothing. Just the sound of our breathing and the scrape of cloth against stone. "Caleb," Thomas's voice came from behind me, small, scared. "I am here, Thomas. I do not like the dark. Neither do I. But we are together, and that makes it bearable." We crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes. My shoulders ached. My knees were raw. The air was stale and old-tasting of minerals and earth. Kiona began breathing faster, shallow gasps. "Kiona," I called back, "I am fine." She was not fine. She was panicking. The tunnel triggering something primal, fear of being buried alive, fear of being trapped. I stopped, turned as much as I could in the narrow space. "Kiona, listen to me. Breathe with me. In, out, in, out." She matched my breathing. Slow, steady, in through the nose, out through the mouth. "You are not alone," I said. "I am right here. I will not leave you in the dark. I promise." "Promise." Her voice was a child's voice, vulnerable, needing. "Promise." We continued, slower now, more careful, taking breaks when the panic rose. Finally the tunnel opened. We emerged into a vast chamber so large our candle could not find the far walls. Stone columns rose from floor to ceiling, carved by water over thousands of years. The air was cold but clean, and in the center of the chamber, stacked in neat rows, were wooden crates, 12 of them, stenciled with U.S. Army Springfield rifles. We had found Neshoba's hidden cache. Kiona ran to the crates, hands shaking. I pulled one open with the crowbar I had brought. Inside, not rifles, documents, hundreds of them, contracts, letters, receipts, witness statements, everything Neshoba had collected in 10 years of careful, patient work. Evidence, proof, truth in paper form. Kiona was crying, not from sadness, from relief, from validation. Her father had not died for nothing. He had left them the weapon they needed. Then we heard the sound. Footsteps. Multiple people, coming from the main entrance. "They broke through," Elijah whispered. We ducked behind the crates, extinguished the candle, held our breath. Torches appeared, men entering the chamber. And at their head, a voice I recognized from the cabin, Colonel Nathan Haynes. "Finally," he said, 10 years of wondering where that old fool hid it, and here it is." He approached the crates, opened one, pulled out a handful of papers, read by torchlight. "Thorough," he said, almost admiringly. "I will give Neshoba that. He was thorough." He dropped the papers, pulled out a match. "Burn it," he ordered. "All of it. I want nothing left but ash." His men moved to obey, pulling out papers, stacking them in piles, preparing to destroy 10 years of evidence in 10 minutes of fire. We could not let that happen. I looked at Elijah, at Kiona, at Thomas. This was the moment. Stand or hide, fight or flee. Elijah made the choice for us. He stood up, walked out from behind the crates, hands raised, unarmed. "Nathan Haynes," he said. His voice echoed in the vast space. "I have been waiting 5 years to say this to your face. You are under arrest." Haynes laughed. Actually laughed. "Elijah Crane, the coward who recanted. And now you want to play hero. I want to finish what I should have done 5 years ago. Tell the truth." "The truth?" Haynes pulled out a pistol. "The truth is that you're about to die, along with whoever is hiding back there. Morgan, Miss Chen, show yourselves, or the old man dies first. I stood, Kiona beside me. Thomas stayed hidden as I had whispered to him. Haynes smiled. There we are, all the witnesses in one place. How convenient. You cannot kill us all, I said. Someone will know. Someone will tell. Will they, who the men with me are loyal, because they know what happens to people who betray me? No one will speak. No one ever does. He raised his pistol, aimed at Elijah. Any last words, Sergeant? Elijah looked at him, calm, ready. Yes, run. He pulled something from his coat, a bundle wrapped in cloth, fuse sticking out, homemade bomb, black powder and nails, and desperate hope. He lit the fuse with the torch. Run, he screamed at us. Haynes's men scattered. Haynes himself dove for cover. Kiona grabbed my arm. The tunnel now. We ran. Thomas appeared from hiding, running with us. Behind us, Elijah stood alone, holding the bomb, counting down. 10 seconds, he shouted. Go, tell Thomas I love him. Tell him I was brave at the end. Grandpa, Thomas screamed, trying to turn back. I grabbed him, lifted him, ran harder. We hit the tunnel entrance, dove inside. Crawled fast, desperate skin tearing on stone lungs burning. Behind us, the world became fire. The explosion was massive in the enclosed space. The shockwave hit like a physical blow, throwing us forward, filling the tunnel with dust and heat and the smell of burnt powder. The mountain screamed, rock cracked, stone shifted, the tunnel shook, and then silence. We lay in the darkness, coughing, bleeding alive. Thomas was crying, deep, wrenching sobs. Grandpa, Grandpa, Grandpa. Kiona held him. I held them both. And we waited for the mountain to stop moving. We emerged from the tunnel an hour later. The sun was setting. The western sky was fire and blood. Behind us, Bear's Maw Cave had collapsed. The entrance was gone, buried under tons of rock. If there were survivors inside, we could not reach them. If there were bodies, they would stay buried forever. Elijah's sacrifice had destroyed the evidence, but it had also destroyed Haynes, or so we hoped. Thomas had stopped crying. Now he was just silent, holding the whistle his grandfather had carved for him, blowing 3 short blasts every few minutes, waiting for a response that would never come. Kiona sat beside him, said nothing. Sometimes there are no words. I walked to the edge of the cliff, looked out at the mountains, thought about all the men I had known who had died, who had chosen death over dishonor, who had paid the price so others could live. Elijah Crane, sergeant, coward-turned-hero, dead at 62, buying time with his life. I would remember him, would tell his story, would make sure Thomas knew his grandfather had died brave. Behind me, Kiona spoke. What now? I turned, looked at her, at Thomas, at the ruins of our hope. Now, I said, we finish what Elijah started. The evidence is gone, but Haynes does not know that. He thinks we might have taken some. That gives us leverage. Leverage for what? To get the children, to get the rifle, to end this. How? I pulled out Neshoba's letter. Read the part about the rifle, about the symbols carved into the stock. Your father said the rifle has everything, every crime, every witness, every date, coded in Apache symbols. Haynes has that rifle. He does not know what it is, but we do. So we steal it. We steal it, we decode it, we take it to the U.S. Marshal in Knoxville, and we put Haynes in a cell where he belongs. There are 3 of us, Kiona said, and he has an army. Then we become what he does not expect. Not an army, just 3 people desperate enough, angry enough, and smart enough to do what needs doing. Thomas looked up, eyes red from crying, but fierce with something else. Purpose. 4 people, he said. Grandpa died to give us time. I am not wasting it. I knelt beside him. Thomas, your grandfather would want you safe. My grandfather wanted me brave, and I am going to be brave. For him, for those kids in the wagons, for everyone. I looked at Kiona. She nodded. 4 people, I agreed. Against the world. We gathered what supplies we had left, mounted the horses, turned southeast toward Knoxville, toward Haynes's estate, toward a fight we could not win, but could not avoid. The sun set behind us, darkness rose, and we rode into it 4 survivors carrying the weight of the dead, the hope of the living, and the terrible knowledge that sometimes bravery just means not running when running makes sense. Somewhere ahead Nathan Haynes waited, with his money and his men and his certainty that he was untouchable. He was wrong, we were coming, and we were done being afraid. We rode through the night and into the next day, pushing the horses harder than we should have driven by something beyond reason. Grief, maybe, or rage, or the terrible clarity that comes when you realize you have nothing left to lose except your life, and your life means nothing if you do not use it for something that matters. Thomas rode in silence, had not spoken more than 10 words since we left the collapsed cave. He clutched his grandfather's carved whistle like it was the last piece of solid ground in a world that had turned to quicksand beneath his feet. Kiona watched him with the careful attention of someone who understood grief, who knew that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is simply witness another person's pain without trying to fix it. As for me, I kept seeing Elijah's face in those last moments, the calm acceptance, the choice to buy us time with his life. I had known soldiers who died brave deaths, had held men while they bled out in the dirt. But Elijah's death was different. It was not brave because he faced death without fear. It was brave because he had been afraid for 5 years and died anyway. That kind of courage does not come from being unafraid. It comes from being terrified and acting anyway. We reached the outskirts of Knoxville on the evening of the second day. The city sprawled below us, maybe 5,000 souls built around the Tennessee River like a child clinging to its mother. Gas lamps were beginning to flicker on as dusk fell. Smoke rose from chimneys. Normal people doing normal things. And somewhere in that normalcy, Nathan Haynes had an estate where he held 13 children hostage and kept a rifle that could destroy him. "We need information," I said. "Layout of his property. Guard positions where the children are held." "How do we get that?" Kiona asked. "We ask someone who knows." I led them to the edge of town to a neighborhood where houses were smaller and people worked with their hands instead of their minds. Found the place I was looking for. A blacksmith's shop forged cold for the night. Tools hung neat on the walls. I knocked, waited. The door opened. A black man in his 40s, muscular from years of hammer work, regarded us with the careful neutrality of someone who had learned that strangers often brought trouble. "Help you?" he asked. "Looking for information about Nathan Haynes's estate." His expression closed down. "Do not know anything about that." "Yes, you do. You shoe horses for half the rich families in Knoxville. You hear things, see things, know things. And if I did, why would I tell you?" I pulled out Elijah's whistle from Thomas's hand, showed him the carving on the handle. 3 letters, E.C. This belonged to Elijah Crane, sergeant, blacksmith, friend to people who needed one. He is dead. Died 2 days ago stopping a war criminal. His grandson is here trying to finish what his grandfather started. We need help. The man looked at Thomas, at the whistle, at the grief and determination warring on a 9-year-old's face. "Elijah Crane was a good man," he said finally. "Best man I ever knew. Come inside." His name was Marcus Webb. He had served with Elijah in the war, had moved to Knoxville after discharge, had built a life shoeing horses and minding his own business. But he had not forgotten his friend. "Haynes's estate is 3 miles north of here," Marcus said, spreading a hand-drawn map on his workbench. 200 acres, main house here, barn here, guard posts at the 4 corners, maybe 20 men total but only 10 on duty at any time. "Where are the children?" Kiona asked. "Barn, upper level. I saw them when I went to shoe Haynes's horses last week. 13 kids, looked scared but unharmed. And Haynes himself, in the main house, has not left the property since the cave collapse, waiting for his testimony to the Army in 3 days. Thinks if he can just hold out until then, he wins." I studied the map, looked for weaknesses, found one. "This creek," I said, pointing to a blue line that ran through the property. 3 Rivers Creek. How deep? Maybe 4 feet this time of year. Snow melt from the mountains. Fast current. Cold enough to kill you if you stay in too long, but deep enough to swim, if you are crazy enough to try. I smiled. Crazy is what we do best. We spent 2 hours planning. Marcus provided details, guard shift changes, weak points in the perimeter, the fact that Haynes kept his personal weapons in a locked cabinet in his study, including a rifle he had taken from a dead Apache. Neshoba's rifle, the evidence we needed. You cannot get in through the front, Marcus said. Too many guards. Too much open ground. We do not go through the front, I said. We go 3 ways. I swim the creek. Come in from the blind side where they are not watching. Keona and Thomas approach from the road, visible, hands up, looking like they are surrendering. That is suicide, Marcus said. It is distraction. While guards are focused on them, I get into the barn, free the kids, get the rifle, get Elijah. Elijah is dead, Thomas said quietly. First words in hours. I meant get out, I corrected gently. Get everyone out. What do we do when they realize we do not actually have the evidence? Keona asked. You run, fast as you can, into the woods. I cover you. This is a terrible plan, Marcus said. You have a better one. He did not. Then we move in 2 hours, after full dark. Marcus looked at Thomas. Boy, you do not have to do this. You can stay here. Be safe. Thomas shook his head. My grandpa died buying us time. I am not going to waste it being safe. Marcus nodded slowly, reached into a drawer, pulled out a pistol. Small, old, but functional. Your grandfather gave this to me 20 years ago, said I might need it someday. I think today is that day. He handed it to me. Bring those children home. And if you get a chance, put a bullet in Nathan Haynes, for Elijah. If I get the chance, I said, I will put him in a cell. Death is too easy for what he has done. The walk to Haynes's estate took an hour. We moved through darkness, 3 figures carrying the weight of the dead and the hope of the living. Thomas walked between Keona and me, pliant, determined. Too young for this. But war does not wait for you to be ready. It comes when it comes, and you either stand or you break. Thomas was standing. As we approached the property, I split off toward the creek. Keona and Thomas continued toward the main road. Caleb, Thomas called softly. I turned. Be careful, he said. You too, Thomas. Remember what I taught you. If things go wrong, you run north. Do not stop. Do not look back. You get to the marshal's office. You tell them everything. I will. Promise. Promise. I wanted to say more, wanted to tell him that he was brave, that his grandfather would be proud, that I was honored to know him. But there was no time. There is never time for the words that matter most. So I just nodded, turned, and disappeared into the darkness. 3 Rivers Creek was exactly as cold as Marcus had warned her, colder maybe. I stripped down to pants and undershirt, wrapped my rifle pistol and knife in the waterproof deer hide I had brought, tied the bundle to my back with rope. The water hit me like 1,000 knives. My breath stopped, muscles seized. For a moment I could not move, could not think, could not do anything except feel the cold trying to kill me. Then training took over. The same training that had kept me alive through winter campaigns and mountain hunts and 5 years of surviving alone. You do not fight the cold, you accept it, you move through it, you keep moving until you reach the other side, or you die trying. I swam. 40 seconds in the water. 40 seconds of cold so intense it stopped being sensation and became something else. Pure experience. The edge between life and death. I reached the far bank, pulled myself out, lay in the snow and grass shaking so hard my teeth rattled. No time to recover, no time to warm up. The cold would kill me if I stayed still. I forced myself to stand, forced frozen fingers to unwrap the bundle. The rifle was dry, the pistol was dry. Small miracles. I moved toward the barn using darkness and shadow and every trick I had learned in 6 years of scouting. 20 yards, 10, 5. A guard stood near the barn door, smoking, bored, not expecting trouble. I came up behind him, silent, put the knife to his throat. "Make a sound and you die," I whispered. "Nod if you understand." He nodded. "How many guards inside the barn?" "2," he breathed. "Where are the children?" "Upper level, locked in." "Key, hanging by the door. You are going to walk away, north, into the woods. Do not stop. Do not look back. Do not warn anyone. Do this and you live. Understand?" Another nod. I released him. He ran, disappeared into darkness. One less man to fight, one less life to take. I opened the barn door slowly, stepped inside. The smell hit me first. Hay and horse and fear. The kind of fear that settles into a place when people have been held against their will. 2 guards sat near a table playing cards by lamplight. Their rifles leaned against the wall, close but not close enough. I aimed, fired twice, both men dropped. Not dead. I had aimed low. Leg shots, painful but survivable. They screamed, clutched their wounds, shouted for help. No time to silence them. I grabbed the key from its hook, ran for the stairs. Above me I heard movement, voices, children waking. Realizing something was happening, I reached the upper level, found the locked door, opened it. 13 faces stared at me, ages ranging from maybe 5 to 14, dirty, scared, hoping I was rescue and fearing I was something worse. "My name is Caleb Morgan," I said. "I am here to take you home, but we need to move fast. Can you run?" A girl, maybe 14, stepped forward. "Who sent you?" "A woman named Kiona Chen, a boy named Thomas Crane, and a man named Elijah Crane who died so you could be free." The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Crane is dead." "Yes, but his grandson lives, and he is outside right now risking everything to save you. So we are going to honor that. We are going to run. We are going to fight if we have to, and we are going to survive. Agreed?" "Agreed," the girl said. The others nodded. "What is your name?" I asked her. "Maria." "Maria, you are in charge. You keep these kids together. You follow my lead. You do exactly what I say when I say it. Can you do that?" "Yes, sir." "Then let us go." We descended the stairs. The wounded guards were still shouting. Outside I heard voices responding, men mobilizing. The alarm raised. We had maybe 2 minutes before the barn was surrounded. I led the children to the back door, opened it carefully, checked for threats. Clear. "Run," I said. "North into the trees. Do not stop. Do not look back." They ran. 13 children disappearing into darkness like smoke. I stayed behind, covering their retreat. Rifle ready. Men appeared. 4, 6, 8. Spreading out, searching. I fired. Dropped 2. The others dove for cover, returned fire. Bullets punched through wood, shattered windows, filled the air with the crack and whistle of near misses. I was outnumbered, outgunned, running low on ammunition, but the children were away. That was what mattered. I retreated deeper into the barn, found the ladder to the hayloft, climbed. From above I had a better angle, better cover. I could hold them here for a few minutes, buy more time. Then I heard it, a voice from outside, young, terrified, brave, Thomas. Kiona and Thomas had approached from the road exactly as planned, hands raised, visible, looking like surrender. Guards had stopped them at the gate, surrounded them, taken Kiona's pistol, and now Thomas was shouting, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We have the evidence, we have proof of everything Haynes has done. Let the children go, and we will trade." It was a bluff. The evidence had burned with Elijah. But Haynes did not know that. I saw him emerge from the main house, tall, distinguished, moving with the confidence of a man who had never truly been threatened. "Miss Chen," he called, "how delightful to see you alive. I had assumed you died in the cave." "The cave did not kill me," Kiona replied, "but it killed your hired men, and it buried your secrets." "Did it?" Haynes smiled. "Or are you bluffing? Try me." Haynes studied her, calculating, trying to read truth from lies. "Where is the mountain man?" he asked. "Dead. Wolves got him." "I do not believe you. Believe what you want. I came to negotiate. Children for evidence. That was always the deal." Haynes laughed. "You are in no position to negotiate. I have 10 men with guns. You have a child and empty hands. I have something you want. That puts us on equal ground. Show me." Kiona pulled out a single piece of paper, 1 page from Neshoba's journal. The rest was ash. But Haynes did not know that. "This is 1 page," she said. "There are hundreds more, hidden. If I do not return by dawn, they go to the U.S. Marshal. Every crime, every witness, every proof of what you are." Haynes' expression flickered. Doubt, fear, quickly hidden, but there. "You are lying." "Am I? Can you afford to be wrong? Stand off." 2 people gambling with lives they could not afford to lose. Then Haynes made his move. He drew a pistol, aimed at Thomas. "Give me the evidence, or the boy dies." I could not get a clean shot from the hayloft. Too far, too dark, too risky. But I could create a distraction. I fired into the air. 3 shots. Signal. Every eye turned toward the barn, and from the woods 13 children appeared. They did not run. They walked, slow, deliberate, spreading out in a line. Maria in front, the others behind her, each one holding something. Sticks, rocks, broken tools they had found. "We are not running any more," Maria called. "You want to hurt someone, you go through us first." Haynes stared, shocked, realizing his hostages had become his opponents. "Shoot them," he ordered his men. No one moved. "I said shoot them." One guard lowered his rifle. "Sir, they are children." "They are witnesses. Shoot them." The guard shook his head, dropped his weapon, walked away. Another followed, then another. Within seconds, half of Haynes's men had refused his order. They might be hired guns. They might be criminals. But they were not child killers. Haynes's face twisted with rage. "Cowards, all of you!" He aimed at Maria himself. Thomas moved, faster than thought, threw himself between Haynes and the girl. "No!" Kiona screamed. Haynes fired. Time stopped. I saw the muzzle flash, saw Thomas fall, saw Kiona catch him. The world became very simple, very clear. Nathan Haynes had just shot a child. I dropped from the hayloft 20 feet, landed hard, rolled, came up running. Haynes turned, saw me, raised his pistol. I was faster. My rifle butt caught him in the jaw. He went down. The pistol skittered away. I stood over him, rifle, aimed at his head, finger on the trigger, every instinct screaming, "Shoot him! End this! Put him down like the rabid dog he is." "Caleb," Kiona's voice. "Thomas is alive. The bullet grazed him. He is alive." I looked, saw Thomas sitting up, saw blood on his arm but not his chest, saw him crying but breathing. Alive. I looked back at Haynes, at this man who had killed so many, who had destroyed so much, who had turned the world ugly with his greed. "Stand up," I said. He stood, slowly, blood running from his split lip. "You are going to hang me anyway," he said. "Might as well shoot me now. Be the killer you pretend not to be." "I am not a killer," I said. "I am just tired of men like you getting away with murder." I lowered the rifle. Haynes smiled, soft, just like Morrison, just like every fool who thinks mercy is strength. "Mercy is not strength," I agreed. "But neither is murder. You want to know what strength is?" I gestured to the children, to Maria and the 12 others who had walked into gunfire armed with sticks and courage. That is strength. Doing what is right when doing what is easy would save you. You have never understood that. You have spent your whole life taking the easy path, killing witnesses, buying silence, running from truth. I pulled out Neshoba's letter, read aloud the part about the rifle. "Your prized possession, the rifle you took from Neshoba's body, do you know what it is?" Haynes said nothing. "It is a confession, carved into the stock, every crime, every witness name, every date, coded in Apache symbols. You have been carrying the evidence of your own guilt, and now I am taking it. I walked to the main house, kicked open the door, found the study, found the locked cabinet, shot the lock off. Inside, among other weapons, was a rifle. Beautiful, old, hand-carved stock covered in symbols. Neshoba's rifle. I took it, walked back outside. Haynes saw it. Understanding dawned. "No," he whispered. "Yes, it is over. You have lost." Horses approached, many horses. I raised the rifle, ready to fight again, but these were not Haynes's men. The lead rider wore a badge, U.S. Marshal. Behind him, 20 federal deputies. Marshal Payne. Marcus Webb had sent word, had called in the law. "Nathan Haynes," the marshal said, dismounting, "you are under arrest for murder, arms trafficking, conspiracy, and treason." "On what authority?" Haynes demanded. Marshal Payne held up papers. "On the authority of this warrant, signed by a federal judge, based on testimony from one Marcus Webb, who delivered a very interesting journal 2 hours ago." Keona's eyes went wide. "But the journal burned." "Not all of it," a voice said. Marcus Webb emerged from the group of deputies, holding papers. "When you left my shop, I copied 5 pages, just in case. Figured if things went wrong, someone should have proof." He handed the pages to the marshal. "It is not everything, but it is enough." Marshal Payne read. His expression darkened. "More than enough," he said. He looked at Haynes. "You are done." Haynes tried to run, made it 3 steps before deputies tackled him, dragged him down, cuffed him. As they led him away, he looked back at me. "This is not over, Morgan. I have friends, money, lawyers. I will be out in a year." "No," Marshal Payne said. "You will be in a federal prison until you die. And when you do, no one will remember your name except as a warning. This is what happens to men who forget they are human." Haynes was thrown into a wagon, driven away, gone. The nightmare was over. Thomas sat on the ground, Keona pressing cloth to his wounded arm. The bullet had carved a furrow across his bicep. Painful, bloody, but not serious. "You are very brave," Keona said, "and very foolish." Grandpa always said brave and foolish looked the same from the outside. "Your grandfather was wise." "I miss him." "I know. We all do." I knelt beside them. "How is he?" "He will have a scar and a story." Thomas looked up at me. "Did we win?" "Yes, Thomas, we won." "Grandpa would be proud, right? Your grandfather is proud. Wherever he is proud." Thomas pulled out the whistle, blew 3 short blasts, waiting for a response that would never come. But this time something different happened. Maria and the other children gathered around. One by one they began to hum. A song. Cherokee, I thought, or Apache. A mourning song. A remembering song. They hummed for Elijah, for Neshoba, for all the dead who had bought their freedom with blood. And in that moment, with 13 children humming and Thomas crying and Keona holding us both, I felt something I had not felt in 5 years. Peace. Not the peace of being alone, the peace of being together. The peace of having fought for something that mattered. The peace of having won. 2 months later. The trial of Nathan Haynes lasted 3 weeks. Every newspaper in the country covered it. Every word was a revelation. Every piece of evidence a hammer blow. The rifle was key. Keona had decoded the symbols with help from Cherokee elders. Every carving told a story. Every mark was a crime. Haynes tried to lie, tried to deny, tried to claim he was a patriot, a hero, a man unfairly accused. The jury did not believe him. Guilty on all counts. Life in federal prison. No possibility of parole. As they led him away, he looked at me one last time. No anger now, just emptiness. The hollow look of a man who had built his life on lies and watched it collapse. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no revenge, just the quiet certainty that justice, however delayed, had come. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. Reporters, spectators, people who wanted to see the man who had brought down a colonel. But I was not the hero of this story. I found Maria, gave her Elijah's whistle. "Your grandfather wanted you to have this," I said to Thomas, who stood beside her, "but I think he would want you to share it, with the others, with family." Maria took it, blew 3 short blasts. The 12 other children responded, humming, singing, remembering. Kiona stood with Marshall Payne discussing the children's futures. Homes had been found for most, families willing to take them in, give them safety, give them childhood. Maria would live with Thomas and Kiona, the 2 oldest, the 2 who had stood when standing was hardest. As for me, I did not know what came next. The cabin was ash. The mountain was empty. The solitude I had wrapped myself in for 5 years felt less like protection and more like prison. Kiona found me at the edge of the crowd. "What will you do now?" she asked. "I do not know. Go back to the mountain maybe. Build a new cabin. Go back to being alone." "You could stay." I looked at her, really looked, saw the hope in her eyes, the invitation. Stay where? With us. Thomas and I are rebuilding the camp at Whispering Creek, making it a home for the children who have no families, a place where people can heal. You want me to help. I want you to live, really live, not just survive. I thought about it. Thought about going back to silence and snow and the careful isolation I had built. Then I thought about Thomas's face when I taught him to track, about the children humming together, about Kiona's hand on mine in the darkness. What would I do? I asked. Teach. The children need to learn survival, hunting, tracking, how to live when life is hard. I am not good with people. You were good with us. That was different. Why? I did not have an answer. Caleb, she said softly, Sarah told you to live. Elijah told you to finish this. Neshoba told you to be brave. They were all telling you the same thing. Stop hiding. Stop running. Stop pretending that being alone is the same as being strong. What if I fail? What if I am not what you need? Then you fail. And we figure it out together. That is what family does. Family. The word hit me like a fist. I had not had a family in 5 years, had not let myself want one. But looking at Kiona, at Thomas, at the 13 children who had fought with sticks and courage, I realized something. Family was not something you were born into. It was something you built, something you chose, something you earned through standing together when standing was hard. All right, I said, I will stay for a while. See how it goes. Kiona smiled. That is all I ask. 6 months later, October 1878. Whispering Creek had been reborn. 14 cabins stood where 30 bodies had fallen. A schoolhouse, a communal hall, gardens bursting with late-season vegetables. And people. 60 of them now, some Apache, some Cherokee, some white settlers who had nowhere else to go, all of them building something new from the ruins of something old. I stood in front of a cabin I had built with my own hands, bigger than my old place. 2 rooms, a workshop, space for the life I was learning to live. Inside I could hear Thomas and 3 other boys arguing about the proper way to skin a rabbit. I had taught them 3 different methods. They were debating which was best. Good. Debate meant thinking. Thinking meant learning. Kiona emerged from the schoolhouse, arms full of books. She had convinced a church in Knoxville to donate them, was teaching the children to read. How was class? I asked. Maria is ready for advanced mathematics. The younger ones are still struggling with letters, but they are trying. Trying is what matters. She set the books down, looked at the camp, at the life we had built. Do you ever regret it? She asked. Staying, every morning when Thomas wakes me at dawn demanding to go hunting, she laughed. Liar. All right, maybe not every morning. We stood together in comfortable silence, the kind of silence that comes from knowing someone well enough that words are optional. There is a harvest festival next week, she said. The children want you to judge the shooting contest. I am not good at judging. You are good at pretending not to be good at things. It is different. I smiled despite myself. A writer approached. Young man, carrying mail. He handed me a letter, official seal, federal government. I opened it, read quickly. "What is it?" Kiona asked. "Presidential pardon for fleeing before testimony, signed and sealed. You are free." I was always free. This just makes it official. I folded the letter, put it in my pocket. It did not matter. The past was the past. What mattered was now. The children learning, the community growing, the future being built one day at a time. That evening we gathered for dinner, all 60 people, tables pushed together, food shared, stories told. Thomas sat beside me, Maria beside Kiona, the other children scattered among the adults like stars in a constellation. Before we ate, Kiona spoke. "We remember those who are not here." Elijah Crane. "Nishoba, the 30 who died at Whispering Creek, all those who paid the price for our freedom. We remember," everyone said together, "and we honor them by living, by building, by refusing to let hate and fear win. We honor them." Thomas stood, held up the carved whistle. "My grandpa told me that family is not blood, it is promise. The promise to stay when staying is hard. The promise to fight when fighting is necessary. The promise to forgive when forgiveness seems impossible." He looked around the table. "We are family, not because we chose each other, because we survived together, because we built something from nothing, because we refused to give up." He blew the whistle. 3 short blasts, and 60 voices hummed in response. The remembering song, the honoring song, the song that said we lived, we survived. We are here. I looked at Kiona. She looked at me. No words needed, we had done it. Against all odds, against all reason. Against an army and a war criminal and our own fears, we had won. Not because we were strong, because we refused to stay broken, not because we were brave, because we were more afraid of living with regret than dying with honor. Not because we were heroes, because we were human. And humanity at its core is about standing together when standing alone would be easier. Late that night, after the children were asleep and the camp was quiet, I stood outside my cabin. The stars were the same stars I had watched for 5 years from my old mountain, but they looked different now, less distant, less cold. Kiona found me there. "Cannot sleep," she asked. "Too much thinking." "About what?" "About how strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me led to the best thing. Finding the camp, finding you, and Thomas, and this." I gestured to the camp, to the life we had built. I spent 5 years hiding, thinking that being alone meant being safe. Thinking that if I did not care about anyone, I could not be hurt again. And now I know I was wrong. Being alone is not safe. It is just lonely. And loneliness is a kind of death. She moved closer. Our shoulders touched. "Sarah would be proud of you," she said. "I hope so. I know so. You honored her memory by saving those children, by stopping Haynes, by building something good." "We built it, not me, us." "Us," she agreed. We stood in silence, comfortable, easy, 2 people who had walked through fire and come out holding each other's hands. "Caleb," she said softly, "yes, thank you for not leaving me in the dark. Thank you for pulling me into the light." She leaned her head on my shoulder. I wrapped my arm around her, and we stood together under stars that had witnessed our pain and our triumph. Under the same sky that had watched Elijah die brave and Nishoba dream of peace and Sarah give her life for strangers. They were gone, but we remained. And we would make sure their sacrifices meant something. We would raise these children. We would build this community. We would teach the next generation that courage is not about being unafraid. It is about being terrified and acting anyway. That family is not blood, it is choice. That justice delayed is still justice. That mercy is not weakness. That the wilderness teaches you how to survive, but people teach you how to live. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let yourself be loved. In the distance, a wolf howled, long and lonely. Once that sound would have called to me. would have reminded me of the solitude I craved. Now it just sounded sad. I had been that wolf, alone in the mountains, howling at a moon that never answered. But I was not alone anymore. I had Kiona, I had Thomas. I had 13 children who called me teacher. I had a community that needed me. I had a family. Not the family I was born into. The family I chose. The family that chose me back. And that made all the difference. The wolf howled again. This time I did not answer. I turned away from the wilderness, walked back toward the warm glow of the camp, toward the people who waited, toward the life I had built from the ashes of the life I had lost. Behind me the mountains stood eternal and silent. Ahead laughter drifted from a cabin where children were still awake telling stories. I chose ahead. I chose light. I chose to live. And in the end, that was the only choice that mattered. In memory of those who speak truth when silence is easier, in memory of those who stand when running is safer, in memory of those who build when destroying is simpler, in memory of Elijah Crane who chose redemption, in memory of Neshoba who chose peace, in memory of Sarah Morgan who chose compassion, and in memory of everyone who has ever chosen bravery over fear, love over hate, and tomorrow over yesterday. Their stories live on, in us, in the families we build, in the promises we keep, in the mountains that remember forever.